Hello, everybody. Just it's a gloomy day today. We're kind of a little bit down in the dumps, you know. Everything's just kind of sad, and we got our first cold front coming through. Myself, I'm kind of that person who likes that. You know, I like that weather where it's all gloomy and grew in its middle. You know, times are changing. The leaves are starting to change color, and it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day to have a conversation with someone about comic books. I mean, how are you today? I mean, that's exactly what I want to ask. So first, let me just introduce this fine gentleman here who's with me today. Some might call him metal, some might call him movies, some might call him brewskis. But I would like to welcome Matt Burke to the SKITS Fun House!
Hell yeah, man. That was awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, all I know is when I first started doing these things, my wife taught me that I need a tension breaker, you know, because I'm kind of a shy dude. I don't really like to talk too much unless I'm specifically talking about one thing that I'm really interested in. So she was, you know, she's a trained actress and everything, and she's just like, hey, listen,
Cool.
Before you get started, before you start recording your voice, you know, do a tension breaker, write stuff down, do a tension breaker, just know exactly what you're going to do. And I probably should write stuff down more often, but with this thing, I'm just like, fly it, you know, seat of the pants type deal. So, but how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm loving it, man. You know, I'm still alive, still working, still chugging along on my campaign. I'm funded, and it's awesome, man. I couldn't be happier.
That's
Thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Oh yeah, no, you know, the funny thing is like, you know, we like to have people ask us to be on the show, and I find like I actually have to go ask other people, say, hey man, you know, can you be on the show? Can you be on the show? But you actually came, you said, hey, I want to be on the show. I was like, sweet, man, that's awesome. Whoever asks to be on the show, they always get dibs, man. It's like first come, first serve. They ask first, bam, there they are. So I appreciate you asking.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
So congratulations. I know you just let me actually you just went over 4,000, right, on your campaign.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So how's the campaign been going? I mean, how do you feel? And first off, I'm going to ask you because a lot of people just don't know this stuff. You know, whenever we're having these interviews and talks and stuff, I don't know if it's an interview. It's more of a talk. It's conversation. You know. So is this your first campaign?
Oh yeah, this is my first campaign. So I'm still learning. I'm a rookie. I'm a greenhorn.
Hey, aren't we all, man? I mean, we're on our first one too, you know. So I mean, we're right here with you. It's like, oh, this first one, it's the grind. You know, you spent. Did you spend a long time actually talking to people to see like what you could actually do for this? You know, like how was your campaign going to go? You know, what did you do to prepare?
So for me, I basically I did the mailing list, and I pretty much just promoted my book for about I'd say about 5 months, and then I figured I would launch after that. And I wanted to get about, you know, somewhere around the number of 100 subscribers, and I got up to about, I think, 98, and then it worked out pretty good. For the last 30 days of my pre-campaign, I did a countdown every day. You know, which cleaver will roll the bones in 29, 28, 27 days, every single day, just to kind of create a buzz for it. That way, when it drops, it would drop, and then that's basically what I did. I was checking out what people wanted. I did polls on Twitter, what people wanted out of a sign-up gift type thing, and I suggested posters, trading cards, a sketch, and then everybody wanted trading cards. So that's what I did. You guys want trading cards, so I did an exclusive trading card for everybody that signed up, and I did that. And for my launch, I launched on my birthday. And I started out a stream in the morning, and I went all the way until night. I tried to, you know, I basically went down, you know, the strip of you know, independent creator channels. It's kind of like, you know, what place you're gonna, you know, play a gig at every day. You know, just going down the street, like, oh, am I gonna play there tonight? Am I gonna play there? just hit that on my launch day, and then it was successful. So it went from the morning all the way up till midnight.
Now, did you do something pretty much every hour? Did you try and plug someone in where it's like, okay, I got this person at 3, this person at 4, this person at 5? I mean, did you do it that way, or did you give you a little bit of time in between the shows? How'd you do there?
I just I got on as many shows as possible. If it was up to me, I would have been on a show every 30 minutes. I just would have went full force. So yeah, I got on there. Next time, I'm gonna just try to hit people up as early as possible and see if our schedules could line up.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the day, it was my birthday, so I broke off and went and hung out with the fam. So that was really cool, and it was just a really cool birthday gift.
So you're a family man. Are your kids? Do you have kids? You have kids?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Are your kids of the age where they know what you're doing right now, doing comic books?
So my book is an adult book, and it's
Oh,
got a lot of elements for that type of thing. So I keep my work from my kids so they don't see it.
okay.
Uh,
Well, do they know that you draw and you do that sort of stuff?
oh yeah. So I got a 1-year-old. He just turned 1, and then I got a daughter. She's 7. So
Okay.
she doesn't really see all the stuff that I do. Just because I want to kind of let her grow on her own and see
Sure.
certain things she needs to see. I kind of censor what she watches and whatnot too. So that's always a good thing. But they do know I like to draw and make comics. So
Well, I mean, you got to draw something for. Do you do like little drawings of like Rainbow Bright or something like that, or My Little Pony drawings for?
I do. I've done a couple like little. She wanted a Batgirl, so I did a Batgirl and
Okay.
Catwoman. She likes that stuff. So
Nice, nice. I'm sure she's really excited when she sees something like that, where it's like, oh man, my dad can draw this sort of stuff like I see on TV. That's a big thing.
oh yeah, kids love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic, man. Oh. So let people know what you're drinking. What are you drinking here today? Is it
I'm drinking a Rockstar today, trying to keep the energy up.
Oh man, it's like just bring it, bring it, bring it.
Right.
So a little bit before the show, we were talking about something that I wanted to kind of touch on right at the beginning. You have some of your artwork in the background there, and we started talking about materials and stuff. And you happened to say, "Hey, have you ever drawn on the backside of a Bristol board?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, who doesn't? It just happens." So you use Copic markers. Tell me a little bit about your process with the Copic markers.
Well, I don't really use the markers so much. I use the pins.
Sure. Okay.
But that's something I'd like to do. But I do. I start off usually with the pencils, and then I go in and use the pins. Or I also use nibs and brushes and whiteouts to bring in different standouts and highlights and whatnots. But yeah,
So
that's usually.
how does the backside of the Bristol board actually affect your drawings? I mean, how does that hurt you, when you do that?
Oh man! So basically, like I was doing a live stream with my buddy Sim, was a doodle and chill, and I was doing a Butch Cleaver piece. Everybody was doing a little Butch Cleaver piece. It was really cool, and I had this big old board that my lady got me for my birthday, and it was like an 11 by 18 or something like that. And I put it on the smooth side, and I started using the Copic pin, and it just would not work. So I'm like, oh, I can't do nothing with this. So I just started after the pencils, just laying down like with the marker, just doing my spot blacks, and I figured I'm gonna have to dig this out with some quills. That's the only way I can actually finish the piece. It's actually like this one right here. Yeah, I don't know if you can really see it, but it's like a Butch
Yeah.
Cleaver piece. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. So myself, whenever I use the backside of the Bristol, I got to be honest, it doesn't really bother me too much, and it must be because of my style, just the way that I do things. I use a lot of watercolor paper and stuff like that. So if I use the backside of the Bristol, I mean, it's just like what I'm used to, the natural paper, cold press, hot press. It doesn't really matter, you know. I do like when I'm doing just my regular comic pages, for it to be nice and smooth. So a Bristol board, either side, it doesn't matter. That's pretty smooth compared to what I'm used to. And also I use brushes when I ink.
Oh yeah.
So, brushes, they pretty much will ink on anything. It doesn't really bother you too much.
Yeah.
So
It's fun,
I,
like oh, I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead, man.
Oh, I kind of like the whole Bob Ross school of thought. You know what I mean? Like when you mess up, sometimes I just keep going. You know what I mean? And then it's like a happy
Yeah.
mistake, whatnot. And I just keep going, man. And sometimes I've gotten my favorite um, experiments out of that thought process.
Well, I'll tell you what, like, if I'm penciling a page, I get pretty detailed with it. You know, like I'll go in and do a bunch of stuff, but I'm still kind of rough at the same time. But if I'm inking a page, I think of inks as a process where I can, just like pencils, I can go back and erase it. And the way that I erase it is I go back in with white paint, you know. So for me, I'm just like, yeah, I was showing you this beforehand, before the show. Like, I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm starting to put some, I don't know if people can really see that, but that's just a page that I'll be working on here this week. And I just put the thumbnails on there. And if it's an inked page, which one of those right there actually is an ink page, I'll take that sketchy outline and I'll just go straight into inks on that. And if I mess up, I mess up. I don't really care. I just go back in and I, you know, just white it out and go right over it. But I don't use whiteout. I don't like whiteout because it yellows.
Mm.
So I use a lot of, I'll use like a gesso mixed with a matte medium a little
Oh,
bit.
nice.
And what that does is it lays flat and it doesn't have the grittiness of gesso.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's kind of a nice little process there. Um, you know, coming from the fine art background, I tend to, you know, fall into those types of things. And I know when I talk to people that are just comic book type guys, they don't really know about all these different processes that you can actually do in the fine art world to bring into your comic books. And since mine is kind of painted and inked and penciled and all over the place, that's just something that I'm bringing to it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so we got a few people in the chat. Let me just say hello to people in the chat, and we'll get into some other stuff. We got El Gargoyle. Hey, El Gargoyle, what's going on? We got Black Star. That's my lovely wife. We got Burst Films. What's she saying here? You're no rookie anymore, Mel. You're a funded rookie now. Oh gosh. And we got Rot 10 Glory. Skits, what's up, Matt?
What's up?
Back Butch Cleater today, finally. Nice. Rot 10 Glory. It's nice to
Thanks,
see you
brother.
out, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. He was he posted up a video a few days ago, and I wrote to him a couple times about it. I thought it was a pretty good video. You know, he's just growing, going through some changes, doing some new things, you know, and that's always exciting, you know, when people do that sort of thing. So I was just wanting to, you know, say that I'm following him and I appreciate what he's going through, and you know, I support him, you know,
Oh,
wherever it
absolutely.
may lead. Wherever, I'm gonna get a drink of water. I don't know why I have this giant jug. I mean, look at it. I feel like I'm a bodybuilder or something. That's what they always have. They have like a giant jug of water and stuff. Mm. But I haven't actually talked too much today, so this is my first time talking today. So now I'm like starting to dry out and everything. You know.
Oh, I
we
hear
got
you, man.
got Rot 10. What's he saying? Yes, I appreciate the comment, Skit. Yeah, no problem, Rot, man. I appreciate you. Um, let's talk. I mean, since we are talking about your comic, we might as well actually show it. I mean, that's what we're here to do, right? I mean, pimp some stuff. How about I show your video and then we'll talk about it? How's that?
Oh, sure.
All right. And I think I shared the audio. Just let me know if it isn't.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Burke. I'm an indie comic artist and writer and creator of Butch Cleaver. So what is Butch Cleaver? Well, if you threw Batman, Swamp Thing, Jonah Hex, and Hellboy into a meat grinder, Butch Cleaver would come out. Butch Cleaver is a fantasy horror western about a brutal butcher who is killed and brought back to life by a voodoo curse that grants him the power to control and weaponize bone. He tries to use said power for revenge, reckoning, and redemption. With influences of old spaghetti westerns, Sin City, and horror movies from the last 80 years, Butch Cleaver might be the book you're aiming for. In this campaign, I'm offering a 48-page colored graphic novel with different tiers, backer input, and stretch goals. I was told I couldn't be an artist. I was told I couldn't make a comic. Now I'm here to ask you, help me prove the haters wrong and back Butch Cleaver. Thank you for your consideration.
Nice. Nice. I gotta tell you, man. So you actually had people around you saying you couldn't do something? I mean, tell me about that. What's that all about?
Back in high school, I was really getting into the Image comics. I was really into Spawn and more than anything the Max. I used to draw the Max all the time in high school, and I was just inspired by all those guys, man, and what they're doing. And at the time, I didn't even know what they were doing. I wasn't really that much. I wasn't like a super like comic book nerd, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
But I was always into the art from like 4 years old. I was into comics. My grandfather, my father, my uncle got me into comics. They took me at a con when I was like 7 years old or something. So I was never really into even reading the comics. I just looked at the art and I always knew the art. But when the Image boom happened, I was out there buying all the comics, watching MTV Max. I was watching Spawn on, and Todd McFarlane. He kind of became my role model. And the Max was like my favorite book though. And I loved them all. I loved all those books. My school at the time, they got this big grant, I think, from the government, and they were going to expand the art sector of the school, and it was going to become an art institute. And I was a knucklehead back then, and my grades weren't as far as I wanted them to be. And I tried out for the academy, and they told me, your art's good, but you're not gonna be an artist in this academy. It's not gonna happen. So I had a lot of kids, that they had better grades, but they weren't as passionate as I was, and so that kind of ruined me. And so I felt at that point, I was never going to be a comic book artist. There's no point. If I can't even get into here, how am I going to get into the industry? And I didn't even know nothing whatsoever, even about comics, but I just knew that from the get it was over. So from there, I just quit and just that it kind of ruined me as a kid, to be honest, man. And I stopped drawing for years.
That's sad.
But you know what? It worked out better for the good. And then I just became a knucklehead, and then I started playing music. I got into bands. I started playing in metal bands and stuff like that. That was fun. And then I met my lady. She was like, hey, why don't you start checking out some comics? And that was right around the time the New 52 came out. And so I work in retail, and I was just inspired by this butcher that lived in this gothic town, like a Western, and that just kind of came into my head, and I just started drawing that, and basically that's what became Butch Cleaver about 9 years ago. And I had been working on that. So if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't even be working or have Butch Cleaver.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Kudos to her, man. Give her a hug from me. Because I can't imagine ever telling someone you're not good enough, don't draw, get out of here, kid, and stuff like that. This kind of reminds me of a story. My junior high school art teacher, he was actually a football player. He played at Ohio State, and he was a football coach after that, and stuff like that. And he's just a big, huge, gnarly dude, and he was also like, I think right now he's like a 6th or 7th degree black belt in Hapkido or something like that. But he told me this story. He said when he first got to college, he was interested in art, and when he went to classes, so he started taking some classes. Everyone was better than him, everyone. And he was just like, man, all these people are better. And a lot of them are like, hey, man, you're not so good. And you're not gonna. So what he did is he noticed that all the people who were good, they didn't draw that much, like they would draw when they had to, but that was it. So he figured if he drew every day, like twice or 3 times as much as they did, he would eventually get better than they would. Right. So that's what he figured. So he put his head down, and after 4 years, those same, kids that were like really, really good, they were still drawing the same as they were 4 years ago, but he had caught up to them and passed them at that 4th year, So, and also he paid attention to his teachers and stuff like that, and that always stuck in my mind, because I was like, at that point when I was in junior high, I knew I loved art, and I know I loved doing it. There was just something about it I loved doing. And I got to high school, and there were a bunch of people that were way better than me. And I was just like,
me too.
I was like, man, these guys are awesome. But I used that, I used it. I was like, man, I want to be as good as that person. I want to be, so I'd be like, okay, how do I, and I just kept going and kept going. And eventually, my senior year, I was that guy where everyone was looking up to me and stuff like that, you know. And the funny thing is when I was a senior, ninth grade, there's this kid that was in ninth grade that was really interested in comics, and my art teacher wanted to introduce me to him, and they were like, hey, you know, this kid's really interested in art, you should talk to him, you know, maybe give him some encouragement and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. I mean, I don't really know what I'm going to encourage him to do, you know. I'll talk to him, but
Yeah.
you know, I did the best I could. And then years later, he ended up becoming a comic book artist at Marvel. And I don't know if you know him, but his name is Paulo Rivera.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. Oh yeah.
I mean, he's an amazing illustrator. You know, he ended up. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and he wanted to go to Savannah College of Art and Design, but he ended up going to Pratt instead in New York. And I spoke to him recently. He was like, "Yeah, you know, you going to SCAD is really what inspired me to kind of go forward, you know, and I really wanted to do that same thing that you did and stuff." I was like, "Wow, man, thanks, Paulo." It was really kind of you.
Awesome, man. That's really
But
cool,
yeah,
man.
and I asked him, you know, what he's doing right now. I was like, "Hey, man, what are you doing? I haven't seen anything." He's like, "Well, I'm taking a break. I got, you know, I got some kids, and I'm trying to, you know." I'm like, "Man, it must be nice, you know, got them big fat checks from Marvel and everything." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, I took a couple years off. I'm gonna spend time with the family and everything." But the point is, you know, if people are out there hearing people say, hey, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you can't do that, use that as motivation
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just go as hard as you can, because there's
Of course.
nothing better than just popping someone in the mouth years later with like, boom, here I am. What, you know, come on.
Oh yeah, man. I'm glad that they you know, in retrospect, I'm glad that that happened to me. I wouldn't change anything in my life because it just made me the person I am today, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have my book.
Well, I mean, hey, you're here, you're funded. It's only your first one. And here's something that now, have you tried to draw? Have you done massive amounts of work like this in the past? You know,
No.
where, okay, so let me just tell you right now, okay? So, as someone who's done a lot of artwork over the years, 10, 11 years ago, I actually did skits on my own, and I printed them and stuff like that. I think I sold like 10 of them. It wasn't nothing, but I did 3 floppy issues, you know, so 24 pages each. Now,
Nice.
from the first book to the third book, it was like night and day, the art, because you're doing it every day, you're churning, you're constantly working, it gets better and better. So right here, this is just your first book. Keep at it, keep getting money for it. And by the time you reach your third or fourth book, I mean, your artwork's just going to be blowing you away. You're going to actually sit there and look at it and say, wow, look how much better I've gotten. Look at where I am, you know? And that's just a beautiful thing, you know?
Oh yeah, man. It's real fun to just to draw and like study anatomy and that's, I mean, maybe there would be one thing in retrospect. If I go back, I would probably spend more of my youth practicing and studying more, you know. But you know, life, it throws you different ways, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just to kind of go back into my own bits here, it's like when I was in junior high and high school, I didn't really have anything around to know how to do anything. You know, like there wasn't the internet, there wasn't any of this sort of stuff. So, you know,
Yeah.
the teachers I had always like learn from life, draw from your mind, draw from life, draw, you know, all that type of stuff. So I always thought that the way you draw human anatomy is you gotta get it all in your head so that
Right.
you're fluid with it always. Like that's what I thought, because I was like, I'm looking at Da Vinci and Degas and people like them. It's like they didn't have cameras back then to, you know, take reference material. They had to do it all out of their head or from a model, you know, if they
Models.
had models. So I was just like, okay. So I did that, and then when I got to college, I noticed that everyone worked from reference material, right? It was all reference material. I was like, wow. I was like, what is? Are you serious? You know?
Folders.
Yeah, you know. And they're like, what? You know? It's like I had a teacher actually one time say, yeah, yours is from a photo. I asked you not to trace any photos. I was like, I didn't trace a photo. I was like, this is I mean, I drew it, you know.
from reference.
Well, I mean, I drew it from some I took some photographs, and then I also used my own head because it was a self-portrait. So I had to do like a full body self-portrait type deal. And it's like I used a mirror, I used some
Awesome.
photographs, you know, stuff like that. And but because I had already had so much experience doing everything from my mind, doing stuff from reference was like piece of cake. I mean, you know, so I will say to everyone out there, use reference. There's nothing wrong with it. I keep hearing this like, oh, don't use reference. It's like, use reference. There's nothing wrong with it. We are basically, we're graphic artists. We're here to make a living. So use whatever you can to go as fast as you can, you know?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago. You said that you like Todd McFarlane, but you like the Max better.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Well, okay, so I worked for Todd McFarlane for a number of years, and
Oh, wow.
just so you know, I said that exact same thing to him. I was like, I was like, Todd, I mean, I love your work, I love your art and everything, but I mean, the Max is way better. He just laughed at me. He was like, okay.
Well, I will say though that I think that post Max and Spawn, I haven't seen two characters that have been that original. I mean, obviously, like Spawn has like Doctor Strange feel and things like that, and a little bit of Spider-Man maybe, but for the most part, Spawn's pretty original, and then a Max, they're both very original characters, like from the design, I think personally.
Well, if you talk to Todd about his character Spawn, he was like, I invented this in the 70s, and what was cool in the 70s was capes and masks.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it's not that it was ingenious or cool or anything. It's just it hadn't been done for so long that it seemed fresh. You know, that's what he said.
It seems nowadays things that are popular are masks that are void, that have nothing on them but like two little goggles or maybe like one line going through it or just little vents or something like that. There's nothing, it's just void of anything. They're really brutal. Like I've noticed that in all over, like in pop culture and comics, everything.
Really? So if it's just like goggles or button eyes, it sounds like, and then like a line down the face.
Yeah.
It seems like they'd be void of emotion.
Correct. Like just check it out. Just look at things. Look at comics. Look at video games. A lot of characters nowadays are wearing masks, and there's just like nothing there, or they'll look like a car, or like just like a side of like a spaceship, or just what I mean. It's more tech and less. They don't really emote as much, I've noticed.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if that says something about our culture today. Where
I think
people are trying to draw things like that. I remember. I don't know if you ever did this. I don't know if we're the same age or not, but when I was in high school, the kids always wanted to draw characters with hypersexualized features, And
yeah,
maybe that's just a young boy thing.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean,
era, I guess.
I was never really into that sort of thing, but I remember all the friends, my friends who were in art. What we would do, we played this game called the Scribble game.
Yeah.
And what we would do is we'd throw a couple scribbles down on a piece of paper, and then we'd hand it to our buddy, and then they had to draw a figure out of those squiggles. And usually it was ridiculous and sexualized and over the top and stuff like that. So there's usually like four of us, we'd do stuff like that. And I don't know. I would just thought it was really strange because it was always like a weird character with big breasts flying everywhere or something.
Team effort.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just kind of silliness, But I that just sounds really weird. Oh, here we go. What we got here? We got Rob G. Price. I guess like Rorschach, or at least since him remasks. What's that?
Yeah, man. But I even think Rorschach emotes more because his face is amorphous,
Yeah, it's always changing shape and everything. I find that really, really interesting.
Butchtober.
Butchtober. I mean, how
I
awesome
want to.
is that?
Are you going to participate this year? Probably not.
Well, I mean, I'm working on skits pretty hard right now.
Same here, man. I'm going full force on
well, here's the thing. Do we need to do it just to try and get people to look at our stuff more? I mean, will it drive traffic? That's the thing, I mean, the only reason why I'm on here is to hopefully kind of drive some sort of traffic or something like that. I mean, what's your take on that?
I think it's cool, man. I wish I had a clone where I could do things. Like, I wish I had a clone where I could go and just, draw fan art from different indie books and CG books that I love. I wish I had a clone of me that I could go and do Inktober stuff. I wish I just had a clone that could go out and just keep producing art, but there's only one of me. And you know how it is when you're doing the whole book by yourself. You're writing, illustrating, editing, coloring, lettering, all the stuff. You know what I mean? Then you have to keep going and fulfilling it.
Yeah, the only thing I'm not doing on my book is lettering, but everything else, it's just me, and then my wife, she's editing and helping me out with some of that sort of stuff, and she's doing all the marketing stuff. She's like she's here right now posting these things right there at the bottom. That's her. I got my hands up. It ain't me doing it.
But still, it's a ton of work, and if it's one person, or even two people, it's a lot of stuff to do, and but yeah, man, I would love to do that, but I'm not going to be able to. Every now and then, I do got to break off. Malin had a graveyard shift art contest, and since my campaign didn't hit 5, I did a little graveyard shift piece too, just for fun, just because I've been drawing Butch for nonstop, and it's just fun to break off and do things sometimes that are different.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you got to break the monotony and of course, something you can do is you can do morning warm-up sketches. You could do that as like an Inktober type thing. It doesn't have to be too crazy and detailed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always liked Scotty Young for years. He always would post like morning warm-up sketches, and he would sell them for like, I don't know, like $100 or something like that. And I always really, really enjoyed those. What about Inktober collaboration to spread the work and share the art over several accounts? Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things that actually could be done. It's always tough, because I mean, let's face it, we're pretty much at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to this internet type thing, where we're trying to sell our stuff on Indiegogo. We're newcomers, we're at the bottom of the barrel, and we're trying to do the best we can. And there's a lot of eyes out there, but they always tend to be focused towards certain individuals, and how do you get those eyes to kind of come over to yourself? That's the tough thing.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about your book, Butch Cleaver. I mean, we watched the video and everything. Tell me
For
about
sure,
it.
man. Yeah, it's about a butcher and this fictional fantasy take on the 1800s, almost like a parallel dimension to ours. And it's a butcher that he gets killed and he's brought back to life by a voodoo hex, and that gives him the power to weaponize bone on a molecular level. So he tries to use that power for revenge, reckoning, and maybe even to redeem himself. The book it's kind of a little bit of a murder mystery to a degree, action, horror. There's it's rated M for mature, so there's going to be a lot of slasher stuff in there. Think Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, but more importantly, I'm really influenced by like the tone of like the Sam Raimi movies a lot, like the Evil Dead trilogy, and even Quick and the Dead. I thought that was a fun Western. There's a lot of influences by the spaghetti Westerns, old Western comics like Jonah Hex. And yeah, I also wanted to just make a world too where I could bring a lot of stuff in that I like samurais and barbarians and banditos and cowboys and Native Americans and whatever I want. I could put them in this fantasy world. And the setting I wanted to just make kind of like a Gothic town with a lot of cathedrals and saloons and Spanish missions and stuff like that,
So it's not actually a real town anywhere. It's just something made up, kind of like Gotham or
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, and Gotham is a big influence on here, and so is Sin City, Basin City, I believe. And the town, it's called Oubliette. And if it was around in America, it would be somewhere in like Texas, Louisiana, Gulf of Mexico area. Like,
gotcha.
That's the type of spot it would be.
Well, that's always a good place to be, just because the culture and the food and the people are so interesting and fun,
Absolutely, man. And there's like a lot of pirates, like had a lot of deals down there, and I have a pirate in my book, so I could touch on that. Lots of there's a lot of voodoo down there. There's just a lot of culture down there. It's just awesome, and Gothic as well.
Yeah, I mean, all that sort of stuff is just fantastic. New Orleans is just one of those special places. I've driven through it. I don't know how many times, but I've never actually stopped and stayed or done anything like that. But it's just, it to me, I'm from the deep South, and I know like the type of stuff that they probably have there because I've been across all the deep South and them little bitty towns. I mean, that's where I grew up. That's the type of places I've always been, and I love that culture, the deep South culture. One of the things that people don't always they don't really know what's going on in these deep South towns, because every now and then they'll see a house and it'll be painted like a really bright color, and
Ooh.
and they're like, and people will be like, what's that all about? Like when I went to Savannah, when I was living there, people who are from up north, they'd be like, why is that house painted bright purple? Why is that one bright yellow? And I was like, well, I was like, well, it's the voodoo culture. There's a lot of uh,
Yeah.
people in the black community who still believe in that sort of stuff, and they paint their houses them bright colors to ward off the evil spirits. And
Yeah,
when I
like
told someone that, they just kind of were like, "What?" It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, "Okay."
yeah, whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with the film or the book Serpent in the Rainbow, but that's big
Uh-uh.
influence on me as well.
Huh. Tell me about that. What's that about?
It's about a writer that goes down to Haiti, I believe, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, and he basically gets drugged and he's buried alive, and
Oh,
he wakes up and he's basically a zombie. It's like the real form of zombification, and he's going around and he's just like feels dead through the whole thing. Can't really communicate that much. It's got Bill Pullman from
okay.
I don't know what other movies in Independence Day and some other
Yeah.
stuff, but it's worth
He's
a watch.
he's all over the place. Bill Pullman's awesome, man. He's a great actor. But but what you're describing to me right there is sounds a lot like this movie I saw years ago called Black Orpheus, and
Mm,
it was basically the tale the Greek story of Orpheus, and his descent into hell and stuff like that. But it was through the voodoo culture,
mm.
and what it was is, he was buried alive is what happened, and then he went through this journey and stuff like that. There's actually been a lot of tales kind of like that over the years. The French surrealists, uh, Cocteau, I think it's Cocteau. He did the one Orphée. It was
Oh,
it was a really really beautiful film, black and white. I think it was the 40s, maybe 50s. But the process in which he did the film was he individually processed every individual frame in the movie, in the film, and it took 2 years just to process the film because he
wow.
did every individual frame, and the movie is amazing. But it's French surrealism, so there's all sorts of really crazy stuff going on in it.
Yeah.
It's I mean, but it's a really really cool and beautiful film. So that story that you're telling me there, it kind of sounds like it's got a lot of roots in stories that have been going on for thousands of years. Ever since Orpheus. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. So you're kind of tapping into those roots. I mean, it's always, that's always something that I try and tell people. It's like, if you're going to do something, you don't always have to be like, oh, I got to do everything new and everything da 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 da.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and even when you're doing your art, you don't have to always do everything brand new and creative and out of this world, because a lot of times, sometimes it'll be lost on people because they won't have a frame of reference. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is this? They can't identify with it.
Yeah. So if you're creating a story, maybe it could be a take off of something that was done years ago, but you're kind of throwing your own twists on it. Or with your artwork, it's like, I know mine exists in all sorts of realms and stuff going on with skits,
Mhm.
but it's like you got to have a frame of reference. So like a lot of the stuff that I'm showing people that I'm doing, it's like, okay, well this is cool. I mean, this looks like Lord of the Rings. This looks like this looks like that. And it's like, well, you got to have a frame of reference. I'm telling a tale of silliness and craziness and otherworldliness, but it's still got to have something that people can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was definitely cognizant of that when I was going into the oh, thank you. I was going into the process of writing the story and um yeah, from the get on the beginning of this book, you're just gonna be thrown right into the world and you're just gonna kind of figure out what's going on. And you know, every comic book, every issue has to have a point, you know, and I try to do that because this book, I comprised 3 issues that I put out of Butch Cleaver. I put out 3 issues on the indie scene in a couple comic stores in California, and I tried to make each issue have a point, you know, and for them all to come together, and yeah, to be a page turner.
Okay, so let's jump frames here, or areas of talking of interest right quick. So a little bit earlier you said something I was interested in, because this is a question I always like to ask people, is like, what came first for you, comic books or art? But it sounds like for you it might have been comic books, huh?
I think it was probably art. From my understanding, I've been drawing since I was 4.
Okay.
But it's hard to be sure about it. I know I was drawing Batman though, like probably at 4 years old, and yeah.
Well, for me, it was like I didn't do anything, man. I played sports, you know. I played baseball, football, basketball. I surfed, I skateboarded. I did all this. I never was inside the house. And the first thing that probably came to me was comic books through the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the black and white series. That really caught my mind. But of course, I had also seen Spider-Man, you know, the 70s TV show when I was a kid. So, I mean, and Batman, you know, all that stuff was around, you know, the 60s Batman TV show. But for some reason, it never really caught my interest like the Turtles did. And maybe it was just a specific time in my life. And I was like, man, the Turtles are really cool. And then, like, you know, a year or so later, I had a teacher who was like, hey, you know, you should sit down and draw this. You might be good, you know. And I was always working with my hands, you know, with junk, you know, wood or something. But she was like, hey, you should try drawing this. And then from there on, I was just gone. You know, that was it for me, man.
Yeah, man. My dad, he was disabled when I was a kid. He had some brain surgeries, and his equilibrium was a little off, and he could play the drums. He was a drummer at church and whatnot. And but we didn't really, you know, go around too much. And he liked a lot of the old he liked a lot of the cartoons like Batman and Spider-Man and X-Men on Fox. And I grew up watching a lot of that and the Ninja Turtles because I was a kid from the 90s. So that was also a big influence on me as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. So I see you got a T-shirt in the background there. Do you have? Is that something people can get if they haven't actually seen your campaign there?
I have a few of them, but not too many sizes left. I wanted to be able to supply them to everybody. So I've been trying to connect with a couple people and thinking about opening up a store so people could maybe pick some up if they like the property.
Now, what about that big poster, man? Can someone get that? That thing is monstrous.
Oh yeah, this is actually a retractable banner that I did for conventions and store signings a couple years ago, and so I just, you know, kind of use as a backdrop just to kind of show off the character a little bit. And if I'm ever gonna do a con again, I don't know
how many cons have you done? How long have you been doing that, if you have?
So I've been doing cons just for a few years because the first issue I put out I think was in 2016, so about 4 years. But I just did I just did 2 cons. I did Long Beach Comic Con over here, and I also did a East LA Comic Con, and it was fun, man. Just doing commissions, and I did a lot of signings in stores and stuff like that. That worked out really good too. To get a book in stores is a challenge. But if you're gonna do it, I think as a creator, if anybody are watching, like, get in the store and do signings and sell the book yourself. That's the best way. The books aren't going to sell themselves for you. People don't really care because they're just there's like oceans of books. So the only way people are gonna buy your book is you're gonna have to talk to them and tell them about your story and tell them what it's about and talk to them a little bit, you know, look them in the eye and just, you know, explain to them what's so cool about your book and what they might, you know, find interesting about it.
That's a good piece of advice, man. That's something I wouldn't have actually really thought about, you know. Like I've sold some of my books in a comic book shop years ago, like when I told you about 11 years ago. And it was just one of those things. I brought it in there like, oh yeah, we like this. Can we buy 6 or 7 from you? I was like, all right, yeah, sure, you know. But of course, like, I mean, that's one of the things that gets me into comic book shops is like when they have someone big or interesting that you can actually go see and talk to. It's like, well, of course, that's a no-brainer. And how are you going to compete when you got like 20 Spider-Man sitting there and yours is like off in a corner somewhere, Batman,
right.
Whatever.
And if you go in there like on a Wednesday, you know what I mean? People are going in there. You stay there maybe like however long they let you stay there, you know, and
Yeah.
they're gonna come by and they're gonna see you. Say you got a banner and a big stack of books, T-shirts, you know, like whatever tchotchkes you got on the table. They might, you know, you're gonna have to stand up and say something to them, greet them, you know, and uh, basically stick out. You know what I mean? They can walk by or they can say what up or whatnot. You know what I mean? But you know, the a lot of times your book isn't going to sell itself. You got to kind of sell yourself and your book, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that's why all of us are online right now, is because obviously we got to sell ourselves as individuals, you know, that people can trust and be have some sort of interest in, you know, and you know, hopefully that's what we're doing right now, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
But yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you know, years ago, I will say this: sometimes some of the most obvious things is the stuff that I just miss. Man, it's like sometimes it's like, you know, I work for companies developing products, right? I have to actually take existing products and try and find ways to make them better. And I do notice that sometimes it's like I'm so far down in the weeds that the things right at the top that you tend to miss those things, you know? So it's like, ah, yeah. I mean, I don't know why it sometimes it just takes someone like you to say something. It's like, well, duh, obvious, of course. I mean,
I
that's
was
no
on a
big.
stream with Graham Nolan, the creator of Bane, about a month
Yeah,
ago, and he said that he would hit up his people on Facebook and on you know different social media and just say, hey, have you checked out my campaign yet? And I was like, wow,
yeah,
that's brilliant. That's an obvious thing. I've never even thought about it though, and that's something I'm going to do before
yeah.
I go to print, and I'm going to go to print in a few months too. So um, I think it's something that's cool, you know.
Now, where are you going to be having yours printed at? You don't have to say the factory, but I mean, is it in the States? Is it China? You know, which, you know, whereabouts?
I'm 99.9% sure that I'm going with Mixum. So
Okay.
that's where I'm going to go for the book printing.
Okay. Yeah, I know that RT Bear, he was just saying that he had some problems with him printing his. Have
Yeah,
you
I heard
heard
that
about
too.
that?
I heard that about his, but I don't, you know, I'm gonna do a I'm working on the editing process right now. I'm gonna do some proofs in the coming weeks and or get a proof done and sent to me, and then I'm gonna see what it's all about. However, I've got dozens of books that are printed by them and they're perfect. So
Yeah, I know. Vinny's, I got all of Vinny's books and they're printed
yeah.
there. And Art, he was saying like when he got his, they were all printed really dark.
Mm.
And I know that sometimes with the way you set up the files, you know, you can run into those sorts of problems if you don't have, if you have your blacks done wrong, you know, or if it's a digital press, a lot
Mm.
of times it'll come out really dark. I always tell people if you can try and order 500 or more and get an offset print. You know, I mean, offset's always the best way to go. You're always going to get the best, richest colors. But I'm not really sure what happened with his, but he didn't. He just didn't have a very good experience, and that's sad because I've heard a lot of good things from people about Mixum.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a shot and see what it's all about. You know, everybody's an artist and everybody's gonna have different takes. You know what I mean? And that's something we all respect.
Yeah, it's let's see here. I'm always at the LA Comic Con. I'm a little on the fence that they're still having it this year. Yeah,
Hmm.
probably not. I mean, you let us know, Matt. I mean, you're out there, so you tell us.
Well, I've been hearing a lot of things, you know, just from bands like in the industry, just things like that. And I'm hearing stuff all over, you know, that nothing's going to be open up till next summer.
Yeah,
And I think, you know, that's, you know, and these guys have like a lot of bands have been touring their whole lives and they're having to deal with their families for the first time, you know, and they're going to be honest about it, you know, and I think that's probably true. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, hopefully not. Hopefully, you know, it's wrong, but I could see us being like that for a while.
yeah. I'm afraid like this is gonna roll on for a little while, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be a little while longer before things get back to some sort of normal for a lot of the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Um, I know where we live, we're out in the country, and we don't really have to worry about those things too much, and nothing. I think some of the restaurants in the city that's close to us, they kind of shut down for a week or two. You know, when everyone was panicking, but besides that, nothing's shut down. You know, so
Yeah. Like,
movie theaters they shut down.
yeah. I was gonna say over here, I just went over to my local comic book shop a few days ago. It was on a Saturday night, and I got like all the restaurants down because it's on like a main boulevard where my shop's at. It's like the downtown, and all the restaurants were open. There's all sorts of like there was like 200 people out there. They had like a car show, and it wasn't even like scheduled. It was all like coordinated on social media, you know, and everyone was out there. Nobody was wearing masks. I was the only one wearing a mask too, just because it's the law, you know. But I was like, wow, people are really getting tired of this.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you can only tell people what to do for so long before they just decide they don't want to be told what to do anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm a Southerner. You know, we're used to not doing what we're told, I guess.
Absolutely.
But so anyway, I got to tell you, Matt, man, this has been fantastic, man. I really like talking to you. I really enjoyed it. You want to tell people where you're at and, you know, give a one last pitch for the book and everything?
Yeah, sure. If you guys want, you could check out my YouTube channel. It's Metal Movies and Brewskis. I review, you know, metal movies, brewskis, comics, all sorts of stuff like that. I do little doodles sometimes where I'm just talking about albums and how I feel about them. If you want to, you can check me out on Twitter. It's at RuneCutterComic. And if you want, you guys check out my book. It's called Butch Cleaver. If you're into, you know, old 90s inspired stuff, horror movies. Yeah, it's like, again, a butcher who gets killed, he's brought back to life by a voodoo curse, and he gets the power to weaponize bone on a molecular level. So that's basically all I got for you. And the book is going to be going to print in the next few months. I'm going to fulfill in February. So we have the special stuff for the first 100 backers. The first 100 backers are going to get 2 trading cards, a signed graphic novel, the first print of Butch Cleaver #1 floppy, and you're also going to get a sticker by 6 a.m. and MP3 track Roll the Bones by Death Metal Hero and Rot Glory. And again, I only have 18 of those left, so that's that.
Nice, nice. And of course, all these links are in the description. So, you know, if you can't write it down that quick or anything, it's all in the description. So go in there, check him out, go get a book, go check out his Twitter and everything else. I mean, and thank you, Matt. Thanks a lot for being here on the Fun
Thanks
House.
for having me, man. Heck yeah.
Yeah, man. Let me go ahead and play this out and stick around for afterwards, all right?
Oh, for sure.
Let me just share this out. I should have done this ahead of time, but that's just the way it goes. All right. Oh, and of course, everyone in the chat, thank you for showing up. I mean, I always forget because, you know, y'all are awesome, and I have a hard time with paying attention to more than just one thing. And without y'all in the chat, this wouldn't happen, man. All right. And go get skits, you guys.
Thanks, everybody.